Here, you look like you could use this. Thank you. She saw him for the first time on a day, sitting on the curb outside her food stand. Dirty clothes, no shoes, a face that looked like it hadn't smiled in years. He didn't ask for food. He didn't ask for money. He just sat there, quiet, watching the world walk past him like he didn't exist. So she brought him a plate, jollof rice, fried plantain, grilled chicken, her last plate of the day, the one she had been saving for herself. Here, she said, you look like you could use this. He looked up at her. His eyes were deep brown, intelligent, not the eyes of a man who had given up, the eyes of a man who was watching. That's your dinner, he said quietly. He came back the next day, and the next, and the next. For days, she fed him her last plate. For days, he sat on that same curb and ate in silence. On the next day, a black Escalade pulled up to the curb. My name is Darius Hale. I am the founder and chairman of Hale Global Industries, and as of this morning, I own this building. A man in a three-piece suit stepped out and opened the back door. The homeless man stood up, brushed off his torn clothes, and walked toward the truck. But before he got in, he turned around, he looked at her, and when he opened his mouth and spoke, she started shaking. Now, before I tell you what happened next, check that subscribe button. If you love stories where the humble rise and the proud fall, hit it right now and turn on notifications, because the payback in this story, it is going to be legendary. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. Lena Brooks had been cooking since she could hold a spoon, and she was the best cook on Auburn Avenue. Maybe the best cook in all of Atlanta, and not that anyone important had noticed. Her food stand was small, a fold-out table, 2 portable gas burners, a hand-painted sign that read, Lena's Kitchen, Taste of Home. She set up every morning on the corner of Auburn Avenue and Piedmont, right across from the old church. She cooked until the food ran out, then she packed up, walked home, and did it all again the next day. No restaurant, no storefront, no business license that she could afford. Just Lena, her pots, and her mother's recipes. She made jollof rice that could make a grown man cry, waki that tasted like a sundae in a village, Kelawel so perfectly spiced that people drove from the other side of the city just to get some before it sold out. Everything she cooked was made with love. That wasn't a metaphor, it was a fact. And because Lena cooked the way her mother taught her, and her mother taught her that food was not just fuel, food was language. When you cannot find the words, her mother used to say, let the food speak. A plate given with love says more than 1,000 speeches. Her mother, Aisha, had been a cook in a village. She fed people. That was her gift. That was her calling. She cooked for weddings, for funerals, for naming ceremonies, for neighbors who were sick, for strangers who were hungry. She never turned anyone away, and she never charged more than people could afford. Mama, how do we make money if you keep giving food away? A young Lena had asked. Aisha smiled and tapped her daughter's chest. The pot that feeds others is never empty. My child, God fills it when we are not looking. Lena had rolled her eyes at the time, but standing behind her fold-out table on Auburn Avenue, watching her last plate of jollof rice disappear every single day, she understood. The pot was never empty, but Lena's life was hard. She lived in a one-bedroom apartment on Joseph E. Boone Boulevard, the kind of apartment where the hot water worked sometimes, if you were lucky. The kind of apartment where you could hear every conversation your neighbor had through the walls. She shared it with her father, Elias. Elias Brooks was a retired mechanic who had come to America from a village with nothing but a toolbox and a dream. He had worked at an auto shop in Decatur, fixed engines, replaced transmissions, rebuilt cars that other mechanics had given up on. His hands told his story, scarred, calloused, permanently stained with grease that no amount of soap could wash away. But those hands could fix anything until they couldn't. Elias was diagnosed with severe arthritis. His hands, his livelihood, his identity, his pride began to betray him. He couldn't grip a wrench, couldn't turn a bolt, couldn't do the one thing he had done his entire life. He was forced to retire. No pension, no savings worth mentioning, no safety net, just Social Security checks that barely covered his medication. That's when Lena stepped in. She had been working as a line cook at a restaurant in Midtown. Good job, steady paycheck, benefits. But the hours were brutal. Long shifts, days a week, and the head chef treated her like she was invisible. When her father got sick, she made a choice. She quit the restaurant, took her savings, and bought a fold-out table, 2 portable gas burners, and enough ingredients to cook for a week. She set up on Auburn Avenue, and Lena's kitchen was born. It wasn't a business plan. It was a prayer. God, let me feed people. Let me take care of my father. Let the pot never be empty. Most days she made enough to cover ingredients and keep the lights on. Some days she made more. Some days she made nothing. But every single day she cooked, and every single day she saved her last plate for herself. Because by the time the stand closed, that last plate was all she had left. Her dinner, and her one meal that wasn't a sample or a taste or a leftover scraped from the bottom of a pot. Her plate. Until the day a man sat down on the curb outside her stand, and she gave it away. She almost didn't see him. He was sitting against the wall of the old church across from her stand, legs stretched out, head down, a torn gray hoodie pulled over his face. He looked like every other homeless person in the neighborhood. Atlanta had thousands of them. You learned to look past them, not because you didn't care, but because if you stopped for everyone, you'd never move. But something about this man was different. Lena couldn't say what it was. Maybe it was the way he sat, not slumped in defeat, not curled up in sleep, but upright, alert, like he was choosing to be there. Maybe it was his hands. They were resting on his knees, large hands, strong hands, the kind of hands that had built things, not the hands of a man who had always had nothing. She watched him while she served her last few customers. He never moved, never asked anyone for money, never held up a sign. He just sat and watched. At closing, Lena had 1 plate left. Her plate, jollof rice, golden and fragrant, fried plantain, caramelized at the edges, a piece of grilled chicken, seasoned with suya spice. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since a handful of chin-chin. She looked at the plate. She looked at the man on the curb. She looked at the plate again. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. The pot that feeds others is never empty. Mama, I'm not a pot, Lena muttered. I'm a hungry woman. But her feet were already moving. She crossed the street, walked up to the man. He didn't look up. Excuse me, nothing. Sir. He lifted his head slowly, and she saw his face. He was older than she expected. Dark skin, deep, rich, the color of mahogany, a face that had been handsome once, and still was, in a weathered, lived-in way, gray stubble on his chin, deep lines around his eyes. But the eyes themselves, they stopped her. A deep brown, almost black, sharp, clear, the kind of eyes that didn't just look at you, they read you. These were not the eyes of a broken man. These were the eyes of a man who was paying attention. Here, Lena said, holding out the plate. You look like you could use this. He stared at the plate, then at her. That's your dinner, he said. His voice surprised her, low, calm, measured. The voice of a man who chose his words carefully. How do you know that? Lena asked. I've been watching you all day. You haven't eaten. That's your last plate. Then you know I'm giving it to you on purpose. Why? Lena shrugged. Because you're hungry, and I have food. It's not complicated. Something shifted in his face, a crack in the armor, a flicker of something. Surprise, maybe, or recognition, like he had heard those kinds of words before, or like he had been waiting to hear them. He took the plate. Thank you, he said quietly. You're welcome. My name is Lena. Lena, he repeated, like he was memorizing it. And yours? He paused, just for a moment. Darius. Just Darius. Just Darius for now. Lena smiled. Well, just Darius. Enjoy the jollof. My mother's recipe. guaranteed to fix whatever's broken. She walked back across the street to pack up her stand. When she glanced back, Darius was eating slowly, carefully, savoring every bite, like a man who understood what food really meant. Lena's stomach growled again. She ignored it, and for the first time in a long time, she felt full. Anyway, Darius came back the next day. Same curb, same spot, same torn gray hoodie. At closing, Lena brought him her last plate. He didn't argue this time. He just took it and said, "Thank you." Same thing, same, by the end of the first period. It was a routine. Lena would cook all day, serve her customers, and at closing she would cross the street with her last plate and sit on the curb beside Darius while he ate, and they talked. Not about big things, not at first, about food. "This plantain is perfect," Darius said. "The edges are crispy, but the inside is soft. Most people burn them or undercook them. My mother said plantain is the most honest food. You can't fake it. Either you cooked it with patience or you didn't." "Your mother sounds wise." "She was a cook in a village. She could feed people from one pot and still have leftovers. A miracle worker." "No, just a woman who believed the pot never empties if your heart is full." Darius was quiet for a moment. "My father used to say something similar. He said, 'A man who eats alone will always be hungry, but a man who shares his table will always be fed.'" "Where was your father from?" "A small village outside a city. A coffee farmer." "A coffee farmer's son and a cook's daughter, sitting on a curb in Atlanta, eating jollof rice. Life is strange." "Life is beautiful." Darius looked at her. Really looked. "Yes," he said, "it is." By the period, the conversations went deeper. Darius asked about her father. He was a mechanic, the best indicator. Could fix any engine ever made. But his hands gave out, arthritis. That's cruel for a mechanic. He doesn't complain. He sits in his chair and listens to the radio and pretends he's fine. But I see him at night, trying to open a jar or button his shirt, and his face. I can see the pain he won't say out loud. "You take care of him." "He took care of me. It's my turn." "Does he know you skip meals for him?" Lena looked away. "He thinks I eat at the stand. I let him think that." "You lie to protect him." "I lie because if he knew his daughter goes hungry so he can have his medicine, it would break his heart, and his heart is the only thing that still works right." Darius set down his fork. "Lena, yes, you are the most extraordinary person I have ever met. I'm a woman with a fold-out table and 2 gas burners. You're a woman who gives away her last plate of food every day to a stranger. There's nothing ordinary about that." Lena smiled, but her eyes were wet. "Eat your food, Darius. It's getting cold." Osigachi, by the period. Something had changed between them. Not romance, not yet. Something deeper. Trust. Lena told Darius things she hadn't told anyone. About her mother's death. Aisha had died. Cancer. Fast. Brutal. One day she was cooking and later she was gone. "She died on a day and I remember thinking she'll never cook again. The world will never taste her food again." And I felt like someone had turned off the sun. Darius listened. He didn't try to fix it. Didn't offer platitudes. He just listened. And then he told her something back. "I lost someone too, my wife. Her name was Maya." "What happened?" "She was everything good in my life. And one day she was gone. Aneurysm. No warning. No goodbye. I went to work in the morning, came home, and she was on the kitchen floor." His voice didn't break, but his eyes did. "I'm sorry, Darius. I built my whole world around her, and when she left, the world felt like an empty room. No matter how much I put in it, it echoed." Lena reached over and put her hand on his, and it was the first time they had touched. His hand was large, warm, rough in places, soft in others. Not the hand of a homeless man, but Lena didn't think about that. She just held on. By the period, Lena's neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, had noticed Mrs. Patterson lived in the apartment below Lena, went to church, knew everyone's business, and considered it a spiritual calling. "Baby, Who is that man you keep feeding? Just someone who needs a meal, Mrs. Patterson. Mm-hmm. You feeding him your meal is what I hear. Mrs. Patterson, don't. Mrs. Patterson, me. I see you come home with no food every night. You think I don't notice? I got eyes, child, and the Lord gave me a nose. Your apartment hasn't smelled like dinner. I'm fine. You're skinny, that's what you are, skinny and stubborn. I learned from the best, my mother. Mrs. Patterson softened. Your mama was the same way. Give the shirt off her back and catch pneumonia doing it. She paused. Just be careful, baby. Not everyone deserves what you're giving. He's a good man, Mrs. Patterson. How do you know? Lena thought about it, because he never asked. The man Lena knew as just Darius had a last name, Hale, Darius Hale, and he was no more homeless than the governor of Georgia. Darius Hale was the founder and chairman of Hale Global Industries, a multinational conglomerate with operations in countries, real estate, agriculture, clean energy, technology. His company employed people worldwide. His personal net worth was billions, and he owned an estate in Buckhead that had its own vineyard. He had apartments in New York, London, and a city, a private jet, a car collection that included a vintage Ferrari that he had never driven. The torn gray hoodie he wore every day to Lena's food stand cost little from Goodwill. He had bought it specifically for this purpose, because Darius Hale was looking for something, and he had learned the hard way that you cannot find real things while wearing an expensive jacket. After Maya died, Darius had shut down, not his business. His business thrived. Numbers didn't grieve. He shut down his heart. He functioned, meetings, deals, handshakes, profit margins. He was a machine wrapped in expensive cloth. Then the loneliness caught up, and his doctor told him he was developing stress-related heart problems. His blood pressure was dangerous. His sleep was non-existent. You need connection, Darius, human connection, not business partners, not employees, people. He tried. He dated women. The first, Brielle, was a model from Paris, beautiful, sophisticated. She redecorated his entire house and spent thousands doing it. It's an investment in our future, she said. Their future lasted until Darius mentioned that he was considering donating half his estate to charity. You want to give away my house? It's my house, Brielle. Not if I'm living in it. She left, took the new furniture with her. The second, Dana, was a corporate lawyer, sharp, ambitious. They had good conversations, until Darius discovered she had been leaking confidential information about his company to a competing firm. She was being paid a month for insider intelligence. When confronted, she didn't even apologize. Business is business, Darius. Don't take it personally. The third, Priya, was the most painful. She was kind, gentle, a school teacher who volunteered at homeless shelters. Darius thought she was different until he found the GoFundMe page she had created. Help me escape my controlling billionaire boyfriend. She had raised thousands from strangers on the internet by painting Darius as an abuser. None of it was true. But truth doesn't matter when the story is juicy enough. After Priya, Darius stopped looking. He told his business partner, Malik, that he was done. Done with what? Malik asked. Women, dating, all of it. I'll die alone. At least the loneliness is honest. Malik was built like a man who had carried heavy things his whole life, a quiet thinker who said little but meant everything. He had been Darius's right hand. You won't die alone, Malik said. You'll die surrounded by accountants and lawyers arguing over your estate. Which is worse? Darius laughed bitterly. So, what do you suggest? Malik leaned back. My grandmother had a saying. She said, you will never find water by digging in the palace courtyard. Go to the well where the ordinary people drink. That is where the water is sweet. What does that mean? It means stop looking in boardrooms and galas and charity dinners. Go where people are real, where nobody is trying to impress anyone, and see what happens. Where? Anywhere ordinary. A bus stop, a park, a street corner, take off the suit, put on something simple, and just exist. That's your advice. Just exist. My grandmother also said, when you stop chasing the river comes to you. Your grandmother had a lot of sayings. She lived. She earned them. Darius sat with those words. Then he drove to Goodwill, bought a torn gray hoodie, some worn jeans, and a pair of old sneakers. He told his driver, Theo, to drop him on Auburn Avenue. Why Auburn Avenue? Theo asked. Because my grandmother, before she died, used to say the soul of a city lives in its food. Auburn Avenue has food stands. Your grandmother said that? No, I just made it up, but it sounded wise. Theo sighed. How long will you be? I don't know, a while. It turned out to be days. Because on the first day, a woman with a fold-out table and 2 gas burners brought him a plate of Jollof rice, her last plate, and everything changed. While Darius was learning what real kindness looked like, someone was trying to destroy it. His name was Vance Harlan. Vance owned the building on the corner of Auburn Avenue and Piedmont, the same corner where Lena set up her stand every day. He was medium height, stocky, light brown skin that he moisturized religiously, a thick gold chain around his neck, gold rings on fingers, a black BMW that he parked illegally in front of his own building because he could. Vance wasn't rich, but he acted like he owned the world. He owned buildings in the neighborhood, all of them neglected, rents too high, repairs never done, complaints ignored. He was the kind of landlord who raised rent on elderly tenants because he knew they had nowhere else to go, the kind who turned off heat over a dispute, the kind who smiled to your face while calculating how much he could squeeze from your pocket. Vance had tolerated Lena's food stand, not because he was generous, because it cost him nothing. She set up on the public sidewalk, not his property, and her customers sometimes wandered into the corner store he owned next door. But now things had changed. Vance had received an offer from a development company. They wanted to buy his corner building and turn it into luxury condominiums. And the offer was millions, more money than Vance had ever seen. But there was a condition. The developers wanted a clean block, no food vendors, no street sellers, no mess. The food stand has to go, the developer told Vance. It doesn't fit the aesthetic. Consider it done, Vance said. The next morning, Vance walked up to Lena's stand. She was chopping onions. The smell of palm oil was already warming the morning air. Good morning, Mr. Harlan. Morning. He didn't smile. Lena, we need to talk. What about? This, he waved at her. Stand. It's done. You need to pack up and find somewhere else. Lena's knife stopped mid-chop. Excuse me. You heard me. I don't want this stand on my corner anymore. You're blocking foot traffic. You're making a mess. Grease everywhere. Smoke. It's bad for business. Mr. Harlan, I've been here. You never had a problem before. Well, I have a problem now. You've got time after that. I'm calling the city. The city? For what? Health code violations, permit issues, fire hazards. Take your pick. I have a permit, a street vendor permit. Not a food service license, not a health inspection certificate, not a fire safety clearance. You think I don't know the difference? Lena felt cold because he was right. She had a basic street vendor permit, the cheapest one available. It technically allowed her to sell food from a stand, but a formal food service license, health inspection, fire safety clearance. Those cost money she didn't have, thousands of dollars. Mr. Harlan, please, this stand is all I have. My father is sick. I pay for his medicine with this stand. I can't just... Not my problem. Vance straightened his gold chain. Time, Lena. Find somewhere else. He walked away. Lena stood there, knife in hand, onions burning her eyes. But it wasn't the onions making her cry. That evening, at closing, she brought Darius his plate. She sat on the curb beside him. She was quiet. Darius ate slowly, then set down his fork. Something happened. It wasn't a question. The landlord, Vance Harlan, he wants me gone. Time. Why? He says I'm a health hazard, a fire risk, but that's not the real reason. I heard him on the phone. Developers want to buy his building. They don't want a food stand on their fancy corner. What are you going to do? Lena looked at her hands. I don't know. I can't afford a real food service license. I can't afford a storefront. I can't afford a lawyer to fight him. She wiped her eyes. My mother would say, the pot never empties, but sometimes, Darius, the pot feels very empty. Darius was quiet for a long time. Then he said something she didn't expect. Your mother was right. What? The pot never empties. What does that mean? It means don't give up yet. Lena, not yet. She looked at him, this man in his torn hoodie and old sneakers. Darius, you're very kind. But what can you do? What can either of us do? He didn't answer. He just finished his plate and looked at the corner building like he was appraising it. Lena didn't sleep the night before the deadline. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, doing math in her head. Without the stand, she could maybe get another restaurant job, but those took time to find. And the hours would mean she couldn't take care of her father without income. The medicine stopped, the rent stopped, everything stopped. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff in the dark. Her father's voice came from the other room. Lena. Yes, Papa. Come here. She walked to his room. He was sitting up in bed. The radio was on low, some old high-life music from a village. Sit, he said. She sat on the edge of his bed. Elias looked at his daughter. His eyes clouded with age but still sharp. Saw everything. I hear you crying at night, my daughter. Papa, I'm fine. Don't lie to an old mechanic. I know what a broken engine sounds like, and yours is struggling. Lena's lip trembled. Papa, I might lose the stand. She told him everything. Vance, the developers, the deadline. Elias listened. Then he reached out with his gnarled, arthritic hands and held her face. My daughter, let me tell you something your mother told me the day we arrived in America. What? We were standing at the airport in New York. Everything we owned was in 2 suitcases. I was terrified. I said to her, Aisha, what if we fail? And she looked at me with those eyes. You have the same eyes. And she said, Elias, a seed does not see the sun from underground, but it still grows, because growing is what it was made to do. He patted her cheek. You are still growing. Lena, the sun is coming. You just can't see it yet. She cried into his hands, those scarred, broken, beautiful hands that had fixed 1,000 engines but couldn't fix this. Now go to sleep, he said gently. Tomorrow is just a day, and you've survived all the others. Lena slept, not well, but she slept the next morning. She set up her stand for what might be the last time, onions chopped, rice washed, oil heated. She cooked with everything she had, her mother's jollof, her grandmother's waki, the Kellawell recipe that had been passed down for generations. If this was the end, she would go out feeding people. By noon, the stand was buzzing. Regular customers, new faces, a line that wrapped around the corner. Lena, this jollof is different today, one customer said. How? It tastes like love and sadness at the same time. That's the recipe, Lena said with a sad smile. My mother's secret ingredient. By the afternoon, Vance Harlan appeared. He was early. The deadline wasn't until tomorrow, but Vance wanted to make a point. He walked up to the stand with a man in a suit, a city inspector he had called as a favor. That's the stand, Vance said, pointing. No food service license, no health inspection certificate, no fire safety clearance. The inspector looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, I'm going to need to see your permits. Lena's hands shook as she pulled out her street vendor permit. The inspector looked at it, looked at Vance, looked back at the permit. This is a basic vendor permit for a food operation of this size. You technically need... She needs a level 2 food service license, a health department certificate, and a fire marshal clearance, Vance said smugly. None of which she has. which means this operation is illegal. Mr. Harlan, it's a fold-out table with 2 burners. It's hardly. The law is the law. Shut it down. The inspector sighed. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but he's technically correct. I'm going to have to ask you to cease operations until you obtain the proper licensing. Lena felt the ground shift under her feet. How long will that take? The application process alone is, and the fees, she can't afford the fees, Vance said with a smile, which means she's done, permanently. A crowd had gathered, regular customers, neighbors, people who ate at Lena's stand every day. They watched in helpless anger as the inspector placed an orange sticker on her table, cease operations by order of the city of Atlanta. Lena stared at the sticker. She didn't cry, not in front of Vance, but her hands were trembling. Vance leaned in close. I told you. Lena. Time. You should have listened. He turned to walk away. Mr. Harlan. The voice came from across the street, low, calm, commanding. Everyone turned. Darius was standing up, not sitting on the curb, standing, and something about the way he stood, straight, shoulders back, chin level, made him look like a completely different man. Vance squinted. Who the hell are you? Darius didn't answer immediately. He reached into the pocket of his torn hoodie and pulled out a phone, a very expensive phone. He pressed one button. Theo, bring the car and bring the file. Seconds later, a black Cadillac Escalade turned the corner onto Auburn Avenue. It pulled up to the curb, and the driver, a tall man in a tailored 3-piece suit, stepped out and opened the back door. He then walked to Darius and handed him a leather folder. The street went quiet, because the man in the torn hoodie had just summoned a luxury truck and a driver in a 3-piece suit. Darius walked across the street. Every step was measured, deliberate, the walk of a man who owned rooms before he entered them. He stopped in front of Vance Harlan. Vance's smile was gone. My name is Darius Hale. He opened the leather folder, pulled out a document. I am the founder and chairman of Hale Global Industries. He held the document out, and as of this morning, I own this building. Vance's face went white. What? Your building, this corner, the one you were planning to sell to developers for millions. Darius smiled. I bought it through a holding company. The paperwork closed this morning. I paid more than the developers offered. Your real estate agent was very cooperative. Vance grabbed the document, read it again. His hands were shaking. You can't. I can. I did. It's done. Darius turned to the city inspector. Sir, I am now the property owner of this building and the adjacent lot. I am formally authorizing this food stand to operate on my property. I will personally guarantee all licensing fees, health inspections, and fire safety certifications. My legal team will have the paperwork to your office by end of business today. The inspector stared at Darius, then at the Escalade, then at the driver in the 3-piece suit. Yes, sir, that's acceptable. Darius turned to Vance. Mr. Harlan, you tried to destroy a woman's livelihood so you could make a profit. You threatened her, pressured a city inspector to shut down a food stand that feeds this community. You raised rents on elderly tenants. You ignored repairs. You turned off heat. Vance's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I now own your building, which means I'm your tenant's new landlord, and I promise you, things are going to be very different. He reached into the folder and pulled out another document. This is an eviction notice for the commercial space you lease in the building for your corner store. You have time. You can't evict me. I've been here for time, Mr. Harlan, and I suggest you use them to reflect on how you treat people, because the world has a way of returning what you give. Darius turned to Lena. She was standing behind her fold-out table, the cease operation sticker still on it. She was shaking, not from fear, from shock. Her mouth was open. Her eyes were wide. Her whole body trembled. Darius, she whispered. What? Who are you? Darius peeled the orange sticker off her table, crumpled it, dropped it in the trash. I'm the man you fed your last plate of food for days. The man you sat with on the curb when you could have gone home. The man you treated like a human being when the rest of the world looked through him. He stepped closer. My mother, before she died, used to say, "You will know a person's heart not by what they give from their abundance, but by what they give from their scarcity. You gave me your dinner, Lena, every night, your only meal, for a stranger you thought had nothing." Tears streamed down Lena's face. "I didn't know." "I know you didn't. That's why it matters." The crowd, customers, neighbors, the inspector, even Vance, still standing frozen, watched in stunned silence. Then Mrs. Patterson's voice rang out from the back of the crowd. "I knew it. I knew that man wasn't homeless. Didn't I say something wasn't right? Didn't I say?" Someone laughed. Then someone clapped. Then the whole street erupted. Applause, cheers, tears. An ovation on Auburn Avenue that could be heard blocks away. Lena stood in the middle of it all, shaking, crying, smiling, and for the first time in a long time, not hungry. And Darius did not overwhelm Lena with his wealth, because he had learned through Brielle and Dana and Priya that money dropped too fast, crushes the very thing it's trying to help. So he went slowly. First, he fixed the things that mattered. Elias's medication. Darius arranged for a specialist, the best rheumatologist in Atlanta, to see Lena's father. Not as charity, as a patient. "I'm not a charity case," Elias said, squinting at Darius from his chair. "No, sir, you're a mechanic, and your hands need a better mechanic than the one you've been seeing." Elias studied him. "You're the man my daughter's been feeding." "Yes, sir." "She gave you her dinner every night." "Yes, sir." "And you're a billionaire." "Yes, sir." Elias was quiet for a long time. "Can you fix a Toyota Camry? The timing belt is off." "No, sir, I can't." "Then you're not as impressive as my daughter thinks." Darius laughed, and in that moment, he knew he loved this family. The rheumatologist put Elias on a new treatment. The swelling in his hands decreased. He couldn't fix engines anymore. The damage was too far gone. But he could hold a cup of tea without pain. He could button his own shirt. He cried the first morning he did it. Lena cried too, but she did it in the bathroom so her father wouldn't see. Darius saw. He always saw. Second, Darius dealt with the food stand, but not the way Lena expected. "I want to open a restaurant for you," he said one evening over their curb dinner. Yes, they still ate on the curb. Darius insisted, "I can't let you do that." "Why not?" "Because it's too much. I'd owe you." "You'd owe me nothing. This isn't a gift. It's an investment. An investment in the best cook in Atlanta. Your food is extraordinary. Lena, you're feeding people a day from a fold-out table. Imagine what you could do with a real kitchen." "I've imagined it every day of my life." "Then stop imagining. Let's build it." "Darius, not for me, for your mother, for Aisha, the woman who said the pot never empties. Let's prove her right." Lena was quiet for a long time. "If we do this," she said finally, "I have conditions." "Name them." 1. The menu stays the same. My mother's recipes. Nothing fancy. Nothing I can't pronounce. Done. 2. The prices stay affordable. This neighborhood eats here. I won't price them out. Done. 3. I hire from the community. People who need jobs, not resumes. Character. Done. 4. Every day, the last plate is free. For whoever needs it. No questions asked. Darius smiled. "Your mother raised you well?" "My mother raised me right. There's a difference." Darius handled the business side, licensing, construction, equipment. But the restaurant, the soul of it, was all Lena. She chose the location herself, the ground floor of Darius's building on Auburn Avenue, the same corner where her stand had been. She designed the kitchen, picked every pot, every pan, every spice jar. She painted the walls herself, warm yellow, the color of palm oil in morning light, above the door in hand-painted letters, Aisha's taste of home, named for her mother, the woman who believed the pot never empties. The restaurant opened. People lined up before the door opened. Lena stood in her new kitchen, a real kitchen, with real equipment, with space to breathe, and cooked the first meal, her mother's jollof rice. When the first plate went out, she whispered, "This one's for you, Mama." And somewhere, somehow, she felt her mother smile. But the story has one more chapter, because it always does. Remember Vance Harlan? After the restaurant opened, a man walked in at closing time. He looked different from the last time Lena had seen him. No gold chain, no gold rings, no BMW. Simple clothes, tired eyes, the look of a man who had been humbled by life. Vance. He had lost everything. After Darius evicted him from the corner store his other tenants had organized, complaints to the city, lawsuits for neglected repairs, and health and safety violations, one by one, his buildings were condemned or seized. His wife left. His friends vanished. His gold chain was pawned for rent money. He was broke, and he was hungry. He walked into Aisha's and stood near the door, not sitting down, not ordering, just standing, like a man who didn't know if he was welcome. Lena saw him. Their eyes met. Vance looked at the floor. I can't pay," he said quietly. I smelled the food from outside, and He couldn't finish. Lena looked at this man, the man who tried to shut down her stand, who threatened her, who smiled while her world was collapsing. She could have turned him away. No one would have blamed her. She could have savored the irony. The man who tried to take her food was now begging for it, but Lena was her mother's daughter, and her mother never turned anyone away. She walked to the kitchen, made one plate, jollof rice, fried plantain, grilled chicken, the last plate of the day. She brought it to Vance and set it down at the table nearest the door. "Sit," she said. Vance stared at the plate, then at her. "Why?" His voice cracked. "After everything I did, after what I tried to do to you, why would you?" "Because you're hungry, and I have food. It's not complicated." Sue, the same words, the same grace. Vance sat down. He took one bite and broke, right there in the restaurant, tears pouring down his face, shoulders shaking. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deeper than sadness, from shame, from recognition, from the realization that the woman he tried to destroy was now the only person willing to feed him. Lena sat across from him. "We all have seasons, Mr. Harlan. Some seasons we plant, some seasons we harvest, and some seasons we sit in the dirt and wonder if anything will grow." She put her hand on his. "But the soil doesn't hold grudges, and neither do I." Vance couldn't speak, he just ate. And for the first time in his life, he understood what food really meant. He came back the next day, and the next. Lena never charged him. After time, Vance asked if there was anything he could do, any work, any job. Lena looked at him. "Can you wash dishes?" "Yes." "Then you start tomorrow. Early. Don't be late." Vance Harlan, the man who once owned buildings and a BMW, became a dishwasher at Aisha's. He never complained, not once. Some lessons take time. But the ones that come with a plate of jollof rice stick forever. As for Darius and Lena, he didn't propose right away. He waited, because he had learned that love, like good food, cannot be rushed. When he finally asked, it wasn't at a fancy restaurant or a gala or a rooftop with champagne. It was at the food stand. The original fold-out table, Lena had kept it, stored it in the back of the restaurant. She couldn't throw it away. It was where everything began. One evening after the restaurant closed, Darius set up the old table on the sidewalk, right on the same corner, same spot. He cooked for her. Badly. His jollof rice was burnt. His plantain was raw in the middle. His chicken was somehow both overcooked and undercooked at the same time. Lena laughed until she couldn't breathe. "Darius, this is terrible." "I know. This is the worst jollof rice I have ever tasted." "I know. My mother would disown you." "Probably." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box, opened it. A simple gold ring, thin, elegant, engraved on the inside. Lena looked at the engraving. 2 words, last plate. That's what you gave me, Darius said. Every day, your only meal, for a stranger you thought had nothing. Tears rolled down her face. I can't cook, Lena. I burn everything I touch. But I can promise you this. You will never give away your last plate alone again, because I will be right beside you, filling the pot. Darius, marry me, Lena, not the billionaire, not Hale Global, me, the man who sat on the curb, the man you fed when you thought I had nothing. She laughed through her tears. Your jollof rice is really terrible. Is that a yes? It's a yes, Darius. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, on the corner of Auburn Avenue and Piedmont, under the sign that read Aisha's Taste of Home at the fold-out table where it all began. Mrs. Patterson watched from her window upstairs. About time, she shouted down. I've been waiting for this. About time. Darius and Lena laughed until their sides hurt. They married, not at the Ritz-Carlton, not at a gala, at the restaurant, tables pushed aside, chairs set up between the booths, string lights hung from the ceiling, guests, staff from the restaurant, regulars who ate there every day, Mrs. Patterson in a hat so big it blocked people's view. Elias walked his daughter down the aisle. His hands shook, his steps were slow, but he made it. And when he placed Lena's hand in Darius's, he said, You take care of my daughter, or I will find a wrench, and these hands still know how to swing. Everyone laughed. Then everyone cried. Malik, Darius's business partner, was the best man. He gave one sentence. I told him to go to the well where ordinary people drink. He found a woman who is the well. Standing ovation in a restaurant on Auburn Avenue. Darius's mother, who had passed, was there in spirit, and Lena's mother. She was in every pot, every plate, every grain of rice. She had always been there. The pot that feeds others is never empty. It never was. And the lesson of this tale, a seed does not see the sun from underground, but it still grows. A river does not drink its own water. A tree does not eat its own fruit. And the richest person in the room is never the one with the biggest wallet. It's the one with the biggest heart. Lena gave her last plate away every single day, not because she had plenty, because she had purpose. And when the world tried to shut her down, the pot refused to empty. Remember that. The next time someone beside you is hungry, don't calculate, don't judge, don't look away, feed them. Because you never know who's sitting on that curb, and you never know what your last plate might be worth. If this story moved your heart, subscribe and hit that notification bell, because every tale has a lesson.